South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has dissolved parliament. The move paves the way for the appointment of members of parliament from opposing sides in the country's 5-year civil war. The decision has been applauded by the country's activists and civil society groups who argue that the move is long overdue. A peace deal signed 3 years ago determined that almost a quarter of the MPs will come from the party of former rebel leader Riek Machar. The majority of the 550 legislators will be from the governing ruling SPLM party of President Salva Kiir. South Sudan's MPs will not be elected but will instead be nominated by the different political parties. The conflict that erupted in South Sudan in 2013 caused one of Africa's worst humanitarian crises. Observers say at least 380,000 people have been killed and millions forced from their homes. A unity government has been in place for over a year now, but following numerous outbreaks of inter-ethnic conflict, the UN has warned of a risk of a return to large-scale conflict in South Sudan. A recent report by the United Nations has called for the arms embargo to be extended and for new sanctions against people who hinder the implementation of the peace deal. For more insight into this story, let's now invite the Chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, Dr Abdul Karim Elgoni, to unpack the story for us. Dr Elgoni, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to The Globe.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the dissolution of Parliament, experts say, was long overdue, but would it also open the way for a lengthy process towards reconstituting Parliament?
As you said, it is long overdue. That is what everyone is saying, but it is better now than never. It has been, people have been waiting for this as one of the requirements of the real peace in South Sudan. So it has, the unity government has been formed, but it was, the agreement itself is very shaky because there are a number of other issues that have not taken place. One of them is a parliament where the opposition will be in it. And the other things, there are other issues that have not been taken care of, like a national constitution, like the economic development, like the transitional justice and reconciliation. So there are other issues that people are waiting for, and we hope that they will fall in place after this parliament dissolution.
Now, in accordance with the 2018 accord, the new assembly will number 550 lawmakers, with the majority, which is 332 from Salva Kiir's governing SPLM party. Now, the parliamentarians, we do understand, will not be elected but nominated by the different parties. Will this system not trigger any conflict?
You see, it will trigger some conflicts because some people might not be happy by the number given to them from the different parties that are signatory to the peace agreement. But to me personally, I think it is better that they fight it inside the chambers of parliament than fight it outside in the different regions and streets where people will suffer and be displaced. So I think this is a very good decision that everyone now who is not happy about the situation of politics in my country, South Sudan. As you know, you see, I am from Northern Sudan, but North Sudan and South Sudan, we are one nation in two different countries. So the peace in South Sudan is very important for us.
Well, let's talk about whether all these parties will embrace this system, because we know that in as much as the peace deal is now in effect and in force, but we do understand that fighting still continues in the different parts of South Sudan.
To be very frank with you, fighting has stopped since the peace agreement was signed. Fighting as we know it in the last 5 years has stopped completely. There are few skirmishes here and there. Some people who are unhappy will just boil up, but there wasn't any fighting. It was a bit peaceful in the last year since the formation of the national unity government. And I think this new parliament, both the national parliament and the state parliaments, if it is formed within a week or something, it will definitely pull the train of peace to its last station, and South Sudan will be in peace, a peace that the South Sudanese really deserve to have.
Well, in as much as the peace deal is already in effect and the dissolution of parliament, some political thought leaders and think tanks say that is a very positive attribute towards the reconstitution of parliament. But the big issue is the formation of a new national army. And I do understand that it will be made of soldiers from the opposing sides of the civil war. Will this, come into effect?
It will. It has to come in effect. Actually, as we are talking now, the American envoy for Sudan and South Sudan is in Juba, and he is trying to negotiate and put more pressure for those difficult steps to be taken, especially the formation of one army between two armies who were fighting each other for the last 5 years. It's not an easy job. It's easy said than done, but it has to be done for the sake of peace in South Sudan. And it's not only the Americans. North Sudan is talking to President Salva Kiir, who is very keen to make peace happen in South Sudan. IGAD is working on this. The AU is working on this. The United Nations is working on this. So I think the pressure from those different international and regional partners will help the Southern Sudanese politicians and army generals to come together and have one army that will create peace in South Sudan.
Well, for obvious reasons, all the warring factions will definitely want a bigger pie, a bigger slice of the pie in terms of control of the army, in terms of the control of the natural resources and the economy at large. So do we have an idea at this point as to, as a result of the formation of this coalition and the peace agreement that is already in force, do we have an idea as to who will control what?
You see, to be very frank with you, this is a $1 million question, but I am very optimistic. Dr. Riek Machar is in South Sudan. The unity government has been performing well in the last year. They are trying to put those milestones in place. It's true there will be some horse trading in the coming few weeks on who should be in parliament, in the national parliament, who will be in the state parliaments. But there are enough numbers to keep everyone happy, at least for the time being, and stop them fighting from the barrel of the gun. They will fight it now, talking to each other, trying to find solutions. I believe also there is a lot of pressure from the community. You see, politics in South Sudan is a very complex issue. It is tribal, it is military, it is political parties, it is NGOs, it is churches. So it's a very complex scenario for the new government to happen and for the parliamentarians to be chosen. They have to be chosen along all those lines. So there will be some horse trading in the coming few days or weeks for the parliament to be in place. And I think all people now have had enough of war, had had enough of displacement, has had enough of the devalued currency of South Sudan, have had enough of inability to use the too much resources that the South Sudan has. They had enough. There are farmers who are unable to farm because of insecurity. There are others who are unable to harvest their farms because of insecurity. So to be frank with you, everyone has had enough. And I think President Salva Kiir have given people an opportunity to come to a point where they can talk this in parliament and allow the South Sudanese to have peace in the country.
You and I can agree, Dr. Elgoni, that there's so much interest on South Sudan, and the developments coming out of South Sudan are being keenly watched and monitored by the international community, in particular the United States. As you know, that the dissolution of parliament comes just a day before the arrival or before the state visit of U.S. envoy to South Sudan, Mr. Donald Booth. And the United States, suffices to mention, that is taking the dissolution of parliament with a pinch of salt, because they are very concerned at the slow implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan and the ongoing violence and the deteriorating economic and humanitarian conditions. So what seems to be taking so long for the implementation of this revitalization agreement?
You see, we are in Africa. I'm not finding an excuse but don't expect things in Africa to go step by step, one from point A to point B directly as it goes into developed countries like America and Europe. Here, we are still in a different situation. We are coming out of war. We are coming out of underdevelopment. There is no good training on politics. There is no good training on reconciliation, negotiations. People don't lack those skills, or they have inadequate of those skills. There are people who are entering politics to enrich themselves. There are people who wanted to help their communities. So it is very complex in the South Sudan context. So I believe the Americans will be patient until things can happen. They have worked, the Americans have the experience working with the South Sudanese since before the split between Sudan and South Sudan. They have worked with most of those politicians. They know what they are looking for. They know what makes them happy. They know how to pressure them. So I believe the Americans, together with IGAD and the AU, will find a solution and make things happen, although it's a very difficult. But we hope that it should not take another 1 year or 1 month. We hope that in 1 week, the political parties and the South Sudan Council of Churches and other partners in politics in South Sudan will come together and find a solution that will accelerate the remaining things, which is the constitution, the formation of the one army, the reconciliation issues, and of course the economic development that everyone in South Sudan is waiting for. We hope that this time they will be working together and not go back to war again.
You know, a few provisions of the truce have been honored. Judging by the ongoing political antagonisms between the warring factions and the parties, is the country likely to return to war as a result of these, some of these conditions of the truce not being fulfilled?
Yes, actually, there was a UN report, I think, in February, that was saying the possibility of South Sudan going back to the war are very high. And I believe there are some of the reasons that the president have dissolved the councils to tell people, no, we are not going back to war. We wanted to implement the remaining things. Even if we are delayed, we are starting now. And I think this is a very good sign. It's a very good sign because the report in February was very pessimistic about the situation in South Sudan. And I think the presence of the envoy, the American envoy now in Juba, and will make things easier and make it happen this time.
All right, Dr. Elgoni, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for your analysis of this issue.
And thank you for keeping the African issues always in the minds of the South African, as we all look at South Africa as a democracy to infect us with all the good things of democracy and allow all the African countries be as democratic as South Africa. Thank you very much.
It can only be a pleasure. Thank you. Well, that was Dr. Abdul Karim Elgoni, the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, speaking to us live via Zoom.